Aliens thought humans were enslaved puppets, but we shattered their tech empire. In the emerald depths of Zor, where corporate spires stab the sky like blades, freedom lies crushed beneath circuits and code. Yet one exile harbors a spark to shatter those chains, unaware his salvation carries a secret sharp enough to cut them both. Lenix crouched amid tangled vines, scarred hands sifting through damp soil for tech scraps. Sweat beaded on his weathered brow, his salt and pepper hair matted beneath a cloak woven from local fibers. A betrayed veteran, his broad frame moved with the stealth of a ghost, honed by years dodging VioranTech's watchful drones in Zor's dense forests. A low hum sliced the humid air. Drones, their sleek shells glinting under the dual suns, swept the canopy in precise grids. Lenix froze, pulse steady, his augmented eyes, military implants still sharp from his past, tracking their paths. 3 machines hovered, sensors probing for life. His fingers brushed a makeshift jammer at his belt, cobbled from scavenged parts. One pulse could blind them, but the noise would summon more. He waited, breath measured. A crash shattered the silence. Branches snapped, footsteps pounded. Not drones this time, ground pursuit. Lenix gripped his vibro knife, its faint hum ready at his touch. Mira burst through the underbrush, her lithe form clad in tattered workers' overalls, streaked with mud and blood. Dark hair whipped across her olive skin, flushed from running. She stumbled, glancing back at her hunters. 3 VioranTech enforcers charged after her, black exosuits gleaming, plasma rifles humming with lethal charge. "Target acquired," one barked into a comm. "Neural lock engaged." Mira dove behind a massive tree, plasma bolts scorching the bark near her head. Lenix acted fast. He lobbed an EMP grenade, its arc silent and true. The device detonated midair, a blue pulse rippling outward. The enforcer's rifles sparked and died, their suits locking up for precious seconds. "Malfunction!" one shouted, clawing at his gear. Lenix surged from cover. His vibro knife sang, slicing through the first enforcer's armor at the joint. The man collapsed. The second turned, but Lennox's boot cracked his knee plate, followed by a swift thrust to end him. The third recovered, drawing a sidearm. Lennox rolled, the shot grazing his cloak, and countered with a strike that disarmed and silenced the foe. The jungle fell quiet. Lennox stood over the bodies, breath even, then turned to Mira. She watched with wide eyes, hands raised in surrender. "You saved me," she said, voice steady but edged with exhaustion. Lennox's gaze narrowed. "Who are you? Why the chase?" Mira pulled back her hair, revealing a metallic implant pulsing faintly at her skull's base, wires embedded in her skin. "This, VioranTech's slave device, controls actions, thoughts. I broke free, briefly. They want me back." Distrust flared in Lennox. He'd seen such tech in the wars, but this was sleeker, more advanced. Why run here? Forests are death for outsiders. "I heard of an exile fighting alone," she replied. "Thought you'd understand." A drone's hum grew louder, drawn by the fight. Lennox grabbed her arm. "Talk later. Move." They sprinted through the undergrowth, vines lashing their faces, roots threatening to trip them. Lennox navigated the familiar paths, carved from months of solitude. Ahead, his bunker loomed, camouflaged under a waterfall's mist, an abandoned mine entrance reinforced with scavenged plates. He punched a code into a hidden panel, and the door hissed open. Inside, dim lights flickered, illuminating racks of pulse pistols, kinetic rifles, and ammo crates salvaged from Zor's derelict shafts. Tech consoles hummed, screens showing forest feeds. Mira collapsed against a wall, catching her breath. Lennox secured the door, then approached with a hacked diagnostic tool, its screen glowing with readouts. "Hold still," he said, scanning her implant. "Data scrolled." Neural interfaces override protocols, but deeper layers locked with encryption far beyond standard slave tech. This isn't ordinary. It's military grade, maybe more. Mira winced as the scanner beeped. They experimented, made me useful. Useful how? Lennox lowered the tool, eyes hard. She met his gaze. Rumors spread in the mines. VioranTech rules Exor's 3.2 million souls with an iron grip. Factories never stop, and drones watch every step. Resistors vanish. Lennox's jaw tightened. Memories of his betrayal surged. Superiors selling out to the corp, leaving him for dead. I've seen it, lived it. They own the skies, the cities, but not here. An alarm blared. Bunker sensors lit up, detecting a swarm of drones closing in. They're tracking you, Lennox said. Implant signal? Mira nodded. Likely. We need to jam it. He grabbed a pulse pistol from the rack, its energy cell fully charged. Handing it to her, he asked, "Know how to use one?" She took it, grip firm. Point and shoot. Lennox demonstrated. Charge the cell. Aim through sights. Squeeze. His test shot vaporized a target dummy. Mira fired next, her bolt striking dead center. Too precise for a novice. Lennox hid his surprise. Good. We need allies. The slums are full of the broken. We start small. Build a rebellion. Mira holstered the pistol, her smile grim. An alliance, then. Against them. Drones buzzed outside. Probes scanning the waterfall. Lennox activated countermeasures, sending false signals to divert them. The hum faded, leaving only the bunker's hum and their breathing. Through the night, they planned. Maps unrolled across a console, Lennox marking VioranTech outposts and patrol routes. His tactics were sharp, hit-and-run strikes, using the forest cover. Mira offered insights into internal systems, her knowledge of depots and supply lines startlingly detailed. Raid 1, she urged. Arm the willing. Lennox studied her as she spoke, her words precise, her movements deliberate. The implant scans nagged at him. Something about her didn't add up. Yet survival bound them, a fragile threat against VioranTech's might. As dawn's light filtered through the waterfall, they geared up, packs heavy with supplies. The bunker door slid open, humid air rushing in. Mira's eyes met his, resolute. For freedom, she said, stepping into the jungle. Lennox followed, the weight of her secrets heavy in his mind. They vanished into the trees, the spark of rebellion kindling in Zor's shadowed heart. Lennox led Mira through the jungle's edge, where Zor's tropical canopy gave way to the slum's sprawl. Ramshackle huts of scrap metal and plastic huddled beneath towering VioranTech refineries, their smokestacks belching fumes into the violet sky. The air reeked of burnt circuits and desperation, home to 10,000 enslaved workers toiling in mines for rare isotopes that powered the corporation's empire. They moved low, cloaks blending with the dusk shadows. Lennox's augmented eyes scanned for patrols, his vibro knife ready at his belt. Mira followed, her pulse pistol concealed, steps silent despite her unfamiliarity with stealth. Her implant pulsed faintly, a reminder of the leash VioranTech still held. They slipped into a crowded alley where workers shuffled with hollow eyes, their neural implants glinting under flickering neon. Lennox stopped at a rusted door, knocking twice. It creaked open, revealing Dorian, a wiry man with grease-streaked hands and sharp gray eyes. Once a VioranTech engineer, now a defector, he knew the corporation's systems like his own pulse. Lennox, Dorian said, voice low. Who's she? Mira. Escaped their grip. She's with us. Lennox pushed past, Mira trailing. Inside, a dozen workers huddled around a salvaged heater, faces gaunt. Lennox outlined the plan. Rally the oppressed. Strike VioranTech's supply lines. Mira stepped forward to speak, but her implant sparked, freezing her mid-sentence. Eyes glazed, she stood rigid, a puppet with cut strings. Whispers rippled among the recruits, suspicion thickening the air. Lenix grabbed her arm, steadying her as the episode passed. "Tech glitch," he said, deflecting. But Dorian's frown deepened. They moved fast, organizing a raid on a VioranTech supply depot 3 kilometers out. Lenix mapped the route, using jungle cover to avoid drones. At midnight, 20 rebels crept through the underbrush, armed with scavenge rifles and EMP charges. The depot loomed, a fortified dome guarded by automated turrets. Dorian hacked the outer grid, disabling 2 turrets. Lenix led the charge, kinetic rifle barking as he took out a third. Mira moved like a specter, her shots precise, dropping guards before they could raise alarms. The rebels breached the dome, hauling out 50 crates of medical supplies and pulse weapons before torching the rest. Back in the jungle, they trained. Dorian rigged salvage drones to simulate combat, their lasers set to sting, not kill. Lenix drilled the group in guerrilla tactics: hit fast, vanish faster. Mira excelled, her reflexes uncanny, dodging beams and landing hits with a fluid grace that made Lenix pause. She wasn't just trained, she was engineered. Days later, VioranTech tightened its grip. 200 robotic sentinels, sleek and spider-like, descended on the slums, their red optics scanning for rebels. Workers cowered as the machines patrolled, claws clicking on concrete. Dorian, undaunted, ambushed one with a portable jammer, cracking its core. Data streamed. VioranTech's plans to extend control to 3 nearby star systems, their fleets prepped for conquest. "We hit harder," Lenix said, studying the data. "Disrupt their network." The rebels targeted a comms tower, a skeletal spire bristling with antennas. Under moonlight, they scaled its base, Dorian planting charges while Mira and Lenix covered. Her pistol downed 2 drones mid-flight, shots impossibly accurate. The tower collapsed in a fiery bloom, cutting VioranTech's surveillance for 48 hours. Cheers echoed, but Lenix watched Mira, her precision gnawing at his trust. In the quiet of their jungle camp, firelight cast shadows on Mira's face. She spoke of betrayal, her voice soft but steady. "VioranTech promised me freedom, then chained my mind. You know that pain, don't you?" Lenix nodded, his own scars burning. "They turned my squad into pawns, left me for dead." The words bound them, a shared wound forging their alliance. But doubt lingered. Mira's skills, her implant's complexity, too much didn't add up. As the camp slept, Lenix pored over Dorian's hacked data, cross-referencing her implant's signature. Fragments mentioned project key, a term buried in encrypted files. He glanced at Mira, asleep but restless, her implant pulsing faintly. Morning brought a new resolve. The rebels, now 50 strong, gathered weapons and planned their next strike. Lenix watched Mira spar with recruits, her movements a dance of lethal precision. Dorian leaned close, whispering, "She's not what she seems. Be careful." Lenix gripped his rifle, eyes on the horizon where VioranTech's towers loomed. The slums pulsed with quiet defiance, a spark growing into flame. He and Mira led the group into the jungle, their steps synchronized, their purpose clear. But as they vanished into the green, Lennox's hand never strayed far from his knife, ready for the truth to surface. Rain lashed Zor's jungle, the storm's roar masking the rebels' approach to VioranTech's weapons factory. The massive structure squatted amid the trees, its steel walls pulsing with the glow of production lines. Lenix led 150 rebels, their faces set, kinetic rifles slung across their backs. Mira moved at his side, her pulse pistol ready, the implant at her skull flickering faintly under the downpour. The factory's power core was their target, a fusion reactor deep inside, fueling VioranTech's arsenal. Lenix signaled the advance, his squad splitting into 3 units. Dorian's team flanked left, rigging charges. Mira's group took the right, tasked with disabling security. Lenix pushed forward, rifle raised, boots sinking into the mud. Lightning cracked as they reached the perimeter. Mira tapped her implant, wincing as it sparked. A blackout rippled through the factory's grid, cameras and turrets going dark. Pain flashed across her face, but she gritted her teeth, waving the team onward. "Systems down," she hissed. "Go!" Lenix breached the gate, kinetic rounds punching through the lock. Inside, conveyor belts churned, assembling plasma rifles under robotic arms. Workers, implants glinting, toiled unaware. The rebels moved like shadows, planting explosives along structural weak points. VioranTech's response was swift. 50 elite guards in exosuits stormed the floor, their armor humming with kinetic dampeners. Plasma bolts lit the air, searing past Lenix's shoulder. He dove behind a crate, returning fire. His rounds sparked off the suits, barely denting them. Mira vaulted a conveyor, her pistol blazing. 3 shots, 3 guards down, each hit targeting the suit's power cells with surgical precision. Lenix stared, her accuracy defying reason. "Move!" she shouted, snapping him back. The rebels pressed forward, gunfire echoing in the cavernous space. Dorian's charges detonated, shaking the factory. The main assembly line collapsed in a shower of sparks, halting production. Alarms screamed. Lenix led his squad toward the core, weaving through machinery. A guard lunged, exosuit whirring. Lenix sidestepped, slamming his rifle stock into the suit's visor, cracking it. A second blow dropped the foe. Mira's team rejoined, her face pale from the implant strain. "Core's ahead," she said, voice tight. They reached the reactor chamber, its glow casting eerie shadows. Dorian rigged the final charges, timers ticking down. But VioranTech's drones swarmed outside, their scans piercing the storm. "Tunnels," Lenix ordered. The rebels retreated through underground passages, once used for ore transport. Mira covered their rear, her pistol felling 2 drones that breached the entrance. The team emerged in the jungle, explosions rocking the factory behind them. In their camp, the rebels celebrated, passing around salvaged rations. Lenix sifted through data stolen from the factory's servers, his hacked tablet revealing encrypted files. References to a super soldier program surfaced, tied to something called Key. His eyes flicked to Mira, laughing with the others, her implant dim but active. He pulled her aside, the firelight sharp on his face. "Your shot's back there," he said, voice low. "No one's that good without training. What aren't you telling me?" Mira's gaze hardened. "Survival, Lenix. I fought to live. That's all." He leaned closer, unconvinced. "Those files mention Key, connected to your implant." She stepped back, jaw tight. "I don't know. They messed with my head. Memories are fragmented." Lenix let it drop, but suspicion coiled tighter. The rebels' victory was real, production crippled, VioranTech wounded, but Mira's secrets loomed larger. As the storm cleared, revealing Zor's dual sons, he cleaned his rifle, watching her. She met his gaze, unflinching, but the implant's pulse betrayed her. The camp stirred, planning the next move. Dorian approached, holding a cracked sentinel core. "Found more data," he said. "VioranTech's doubling down. Patrols everywhere." Lenix nodded, eyes on the horizon where factory smoke still rose. The rebellion had struck its first blow, but the war was just beginning. Mira stood nearby, checking her pistol's charge, her movements too precise, too perfect. Lenix gripped his weapon. The weight of trust and doubt balanced on a razor's edge. The rebels melted into Zor's hidden cave network, a labyrinth of glowing fungi and dripping stalactites shielding them from VioranTech's orbital scanners. Echoes bounced off the damp walls as Lenix directed the group deeper, his kinetic rifle slung low. Mira walked beside him, her implant quiet for now, but her face drawn from the factory raid's toll. Dorian brought up the rear, tablet in hand, decrypting the stolen files amid the cavern's cool air. Lenix huddled over the screen in a makeshift command alcove, bioluminescent vines casting blue light on the data. Lines of code unraveled, revealing Project Key, a program tied directly to advanced neural implants like Mira's. It hinted at control over enhanced forces, but details remained locked. He glanced at Mira, who sharpened her pistol nearby, her movements fluid and exact. Training began at dawn. Mira led 30 recruits in hand-to-hand drills, her strikes a blur of efficiency, disarms, joint locks, takedowns executed with mechanical precision. Lenix watched from the shadows, noting how she anticipated every move, her olive skin barely sweating under the exertion. Recruits improved, but whispers spread. Her skills were unnatural, almost programmed. VioranTech struck back through the airwaves. Holographic billboards across Exor's 12 city-states flickered to life, branding the rebels as terrorists. Propaganda drones blared accusations of sabotage, showing doctored footage of the factory explosion. Citizens in the slums cowered, implants buzzing with compliance signals, as enforcers rounded up suspects. Dorian tinkered in a side chamber, piecing together a signal jammer from salvaged Sentinel parts. The device hummed to life, a compact box emitting a dampening field. He tested it on Mira, blocking VioranTech's control waves. Her implant dimmed, tension easing from her shoulders. "Freedom for now," she said, flexing her hands. Emboldened, the rebels planned an intercept. A VioranTech convoy rumbled through jungle trails, carrying 1,000 neural implants destined for new slaves. Lenix positioned snipers along the route, using cave exits for ambush points. As the hover trucks approached, Dorian's jammer disrupted their escort's comms. Lenix fired the first shot, a kinetic round piercing a truck's engine. Chaos erupted. Mira led a flanking team, her pistol dropping 2 drivers before they could react. Rebels swarmed, rigging charges. The convoy exploded in a chain of fireballs, implants vaporized in the blast. They retreated underground, VioranTech's pursuit drones blinded by the jammer. That night, Lenix patrolled the caves, unable to sleep. He spotted Mira at a console, fingers flying over keys, accessing restricted files from the factory data. Her eyes narrowed, scanning documents he hadn't decrypted yet. She logged out quickly, but not before he saw Project Key flash on the screen. Confrontation came swiftly. "What are you hiding?" Lenix demanded, cornering her in the alcove. Mira turned, composure cracking. "Nothing you need now. Focus on the fight." He grabbed her arm. "You're in those files, key to something big." She pulled free, eyes fierce. "I told you, memories are gone. Let it go." But trust frayed. Whispers among the rebels grew. Some eyed Mira with fear, others with suspicion. Lenix assigned Dorian to watch her, the engineer nodding grimly. Betrayal struck at midnight. Alarms wailed as VioranTech airstrikes hammered the cave entrances. Rocks crumbled, dust choking the air. A traitor had leaked their position, coordinates sent via a hidden transmitter. Lenix rallied the group, directing evacuations through back tunnels. Blasts shook the ground, sealing some paths. Mira's implant reactivated mid-escape, the jammer overwhelmed by the assault. She collapsed, body convulsing as control signals flooded her. Lenix scooped her up, slinging her over his shoulder while firing at pursuing drones. Kinetic rounds sparked off their hulls, buying time. The rebels emerged into the jungle, scattering to evade capture, losses minimal but morale shaken. In a temporary camp under a heavy canopy, Lenix set Mira down. She stirred, implant pulsing erratically. Dorian scanned her, readings erratic. "She's fighting it," he said. "But whatever she is, it's tied to them." Lenix stared at the stars peeking through the leaves, vowing to uncover her role. Trust warred with evidence. She had saved them multiple times, yet secrets piled like debris from the strikes. The rebellion pressed on, but doubt shadowed every step. As the group regrouped, planning their next assault, Lenix kept Mira close. Her gaze met his, a mix of defiance and plea. The cave's collapse echoed in his mind, a reminder that betrayal could come from within. Zor's cities buzzed with unrest, propaganda failing to quell the spark. But for Lennox, the true battle brewed in the silence between allies. The rebels, now 300 strong, clustered in a jungle clearing under camouflage nets, plotting their assault on VioranTech's data hub. The hub squatted in a fortified valley, its dome humming with servers that held the corporation's secrets. Lennox paced the map table, marking entry points with a stylus. Mira stood nearby, her implant dimmed by Dorian's jammer, but her gaze was sharp on the schematics. Dorian tinkered with hacking tools, prepping drones for reconnaissance. Lennox pulled Mira into a shadowed tent, his kinetic rifle leaning against the wall. "We need true," he said, voice low. "Those files point to you. What are you?" Mira crossed her arms, olive skin taut under the dim light. "I was their experiment. Memories are shards, labs, tests, and pain. Nothing more." Unsatisfied, Lennox nodded to Dorian outside. The engineer entered, scanner in hand. He interfaced with her implant, code streaming across his tablet. Layers peeled back. Key protocol revealed. A remote control for super soldiers, bioengineered puppets designed for VioranTech's wars. Mira's eyes widened as data flashed. Her role central, a controller in human form. "You're their weapon," Lennox said, stepping back. "Built to command." Mira shook her head. "Not by choice. They wired me for it." VioranTech's retaliation hit hard. 500 super soldiers dropped from orbital pods, each towering figure bioengineered with muscle fibers denser than steel, capable of shattering bones with a punch. Their eyes glowed with neural links, armor fused to skin. The jungle trembled as they advanced, plasma cannons integrated into arms. Lennox rallied the rebels, deploying EMP mines along the perimeter. Buried charges hummed, waiting for triggers. The first wave charge, trees splintering under their stride. Mines detonated, electromagnetic pulses frying neural links. Soldiers staggered, systems offline, leveling the fight for minutes. Mira led her squad toward the data hub, using her implant to bypass outer security grids. Doors hissed open at her touch, protocols yielding to her embedded codes. Inside, corridors pulsed with red alerts, guards mobilizing. Her pistol barked, dropping two before they fired. Lennox and Dorian pushed deeper, hacking terminals en route. Screens revealed VioranTech's grand scheme. Enslaved 20 million colonists across 3-star systems, using super soldiers as enforcers. Data flowed, timelines, fleet sizes, and implant production quotas. Lennox downloaded it all, a portable drive filling with evidence. The mission peaked in the core chamber. Mira overrode the mainframe, files unlocking, but her implant surged, VioranTech's override kicking in. She turned, eyes glazing, pistol aimed at Lennox. "Traitor protocol active," she intoned, voice mechanical. Lennox dodged her shot, plasma scorching the wall. He tackled her, pinning her arms. Dorian jammed a disruptor into her neck, scrambling the signal. Mira convulsed, then slumped. The attack halted. Lennox held her, choosing mercy. "Fight it," he urged. "You're more than their tool." She gasped, control slipping. "I can try." They escaped as alarms wailed, super soldiers regrouping outside. Rebels covered their retreat with stolen hover turrets, kinetic barrages holding the line. Back in the jungle, Lennox broadcast the stolen plans via hacked comms towers. Zor's cities lit up with uprisings, workers smashing implants, enforcers overwhelmed by crowds. Mira recovered slowly and Dorian's jammer was reinforced. "I created them," she admitted, voice steady, "from the shadows under their control. Super soldiers. My design." Lennox gripped his rifle, processing. "Then help us end it." She nodded, pistol reholstered. The data hub's fall inspired thousands, rebels swelling ranks. Dorian analyzed the files further, pinpointing VioranTech's weaknesses, orbital dependencies, control mainframes vulnerable to sabotage. As night fell, Lenix scanned the horizon, super soldier patrols distant but closing. Mira sparred nearby, her moves deliberate, fighting internal commands. The broadcast echoed across Exor, voices rising in defiance. Lenix cleaned his weapon, tactics evolving. Next, seize armories, arm the masses. But Mira's revelation hung heavy. Trust rebuilt on fragile ground, her potential for redemption a calculated risk. The rebellion surged forward, cities aflame with revolt, VioranTech's grip cracking. Lenix led a scouting party at dawn, Mira at his flank, their alliance tested but intact. Zor's 12 city-states boiled over, streets alive with chaos as 100,000 citizens surged into the rebellion. Factories ground to a halt, workers smashing control panels and ripping out implants. VioranTech enforcers fired into crowds, but numbers overwhelmed them. Plasma bolts lost in the sea of defiant fists and scavenged weapons. Holographic billboards flickered and died, replaced by rebel broadcasts echoing calls for freedom. Lenix stood atop a barricade in the central hub, his kinetic rifle raised. The air hummed with energy, the dual suns casting long shadows over the uprising. He led a 1,000-strong army toward a VioranTech armory, a fortified bunker embedded in a towering spire. Mira marched beside him, her implant partially deactivated by Dorian's latest jammer, but faint signals still tugged at her mind, causing occasional twitches. The armory's gates loomed, guarded by automated turrets and a platoon of exosuit troops. Lenix signaled the advance, rebels splitting into squads. Dorian's hackers jammed the turrets, rendering them inert. Lenix charged, rifle barking kinetic rounds that punched through armor. Mira covered his flank, her pistol precise, dropping guards with headshots to weak points. Inside crates stacked high with weapons gleamed under harsh lights. Rebels hauled out 2,000 plasma rifles, distributing them amid the din. Alarms wailed, but the armory fell swiftly. Its defenses crumbled under the assault. Lenix shouldered a new rifle, its hum familiar, as they retreated to the streets, arming civilians on the way. VioranTech unleashed hell. Orbital drops rained down 1,500 super soldiers, each a behemoth bioengineered for war, capable of outfighting 10 normal combatants with raw strength and integrated weaponry. Their boots cratered pavement, eyes glowing with neural commands. The city square became a battlefield, rebels scrambling for cover behind overturned vehicles and debris walls. Lenix deployed stolen hover tanks, their repulsors whining as they floated into position. Cannons boomed, energy lances slicing through super soldier ranks. One tank exploded under concentrated fire, but others held, rebels pouring plasma from elevated positions. Mira directed fire teams, her voice cutting through the roar, but a control signal spiked her implant, blurring her vision momentarily. She shook it off, hacking a nearby terminal linked to VioranTech's network. Fingers flew over keys, overriding a surveillance satellite in low orbit. Its laser array, meant for precision strikes on rebels, was redirected under her command. Beams lanced down, vaporizing enemy fortifications, bunkers, and drone nests, erased in flashes of light. Super soldiers scattered, their advance disrupted. Lenix faced one head-on in the square center. The soldier towered, armor joints flexing as it charged. Lenix rolled aside, its fist cracking stone where he stood. He drew his vibro blade, the edge humming with vibration. The soldier swung again, but Lenix ducked, slashing at a knee joint. Metal parted, sparks flying. Another strike to the elbow joint disabled an arm cannon. The behemoth roared, but Lenix finished it with a thrust to the neck seal, dropping the foe in a heap. Dorian's team infiltrated a nearby command post, slicing into VioranTech's mainframe with portable drives. Code cascaded, firewalls breached. They cut the super soldier control links for 12 hours, the army faltering as overrides failed. Soldiers twitched, some freezing mid-stride, vulnerable to rebel fire. But the effort cost Mira. Implant feedback surged, a backlash from the satellite hack. She collapsed amid the square's chaos, body seizing. Lenix spotted her, dodging plasma to reach her side. He scooped her up, slinging her over his shoulder while firing one-handed. "Cover us!" he shouted to nearby rebels. They laid suppressive fire, kinetic rounds pinging off advancing foes. The rebels gained ground, pushing VioranTech back block by block. City squares cleared, enforcers retreating to fortified towers. Cheers rose as super soldiers stumbled, their coordination shattered. Lenix carried Mira to a makeshift aid station behind lines, laying her on a cot. Dorian scanned her implant, administering a stabilizer. "She's stabilizing," he said, "but those signals are persistent." Mira stirred, eyes focusing. "Did it work?" Lenix nodded. "We're winning ground, but they're prepping orbitals, cannons charging." The battle raged on, hover tanks advancing through streets, plasma rifles turning the tide. Rebels coordinated strikes, using the armory hall to equip fresh waves. VioranTech's forces regrouped at the edges, orbital silhouettes visible in the sky, weapons priming for a devastating counterattack. Lenix returned to the front, rifle hot in his hands. Mira rested, but her struggle mirrored the war's intensity. The uprising swelled, citizens flooding the fight, but the orbital threat loomed, a shadow over their gains. Tactics shifted, prepared defenses, hack countermeasures. The war ignited fully, Xor's heart beating with rebellion's pulse. The sky darkened as VioranTech's orbital cannon powered up, its silhouette a menacing blade over Sor. Targeting systems locked onto rebel strongholds, charging for 50 megaton blasts that would vaporize city squares and jungle camps alike. Alarms blared across the planet, rebels scrambling for cover as the first warning hum vibrated the air. Lenix stared upward from the central square, kinetic rifle in hand, the dual suns eclipsed by the threat. He gathered Dorian and Mira in a fortified bunker, maps projecting orbital paths. "We board their station," Lenix said, outlining the plan. Stolen stealth shuttles, cloaked with hacked VioranTech tech, would slip through defenses. Launch from hidden pads, dock undetected. Mira nodded, her implant flickering despite the jammer. Lingering signals gnawing at her control. The shuttles lifted off under the cover of a manufactured storm, engines muffled. Lenix piloted one, Mira beside him, guiding navigation through encrypted channels. Her fingers danced over controls, bypassing sensor nets. "Grid's dense," she muttered, wincing as a control spike hit her implant. She fought it, overriding a proximity alert that nearly exposed them. They docked at the station's underbelly, airlock sealing with a hiss. The interior gleamed sterile white, corridors patrolled by automated drones. Mira led the team, her implant interfacing with security protocols, doors sliding open silently. But resistance mounted. 200 elite guards in vacuum-sealed exosuits converged, plasma rifles charging. 50 super soldiers lumbered behind, their bioengineered frames filling the halls. Lenix opened fire, kinetic rounds ricocheting off bulkheads. Rebels fanned out, using cover from cargo crates. A guard charged. Lenix sidestepped, slamming a vibroblade into the suit's seam. Sparks flew, the foe dropping. Mira's pistol barked in sync, targeting joints and visors with deadly accuracy. The team pushed forward, EMP grenades disabling clusters of guards, but super soldiers absorbed the pulses, neural links hardened. Dorian split off with a squad, heading for the cannon's control nexus. He jacked into a terminal, code flowing as he reprogrammed targeting algorithms. "Redirecting," he reported via comms. The cannon fired, but beams lanced downward toward VioranTech's planetary headquarters instead. Explosions bloomed on the surface, and the command center leveled in a mushroom cloud of debris. Deeper in, Mira froze at a lab door. "Varn," she whispered, implant pulsing. She breached it, revealing Dr. Varn, a gaunt man in a lab coat, surrounded by holographic displays, his eyes lit with recognition. "My key returns," he sneered. "You designed it all, the super soldiers, their controls, from the shadows under my guidance." Mira's face twisted. "You wired me, made me a monster." Varn laughed, activating his personal guard. 10 elite enforcers with augmented speed. They attacked, blades extending from arms. Lenix and Mira fought back to back, synchronized like a machine. Lenix parried a strike, countering with a rifle butt to the helmet. Mira dodged a slash, her pistol disabling a knee servo motor. Together they weaved through the assault, Lenix's vibro blade complementing her precise shots. One guard fell to a joint strike, another to a coordinated takedown. Varn retreated behind a console, triggering station defenses. Bulkhead sealed, but Mira pressed forward, implant feedback building. She reached a central node, hands on the interface. "Overriding final protocol," she gritted. Code surged through her, shutting down the super soldier army planet-wide. Across Zor, the behemoths collapsed, neural links severed permanently. Alarms screamed. Self-destruct initiated. The station shuddered, red lights flashing. Varn lunged at Mira, but Lenix intercepted, vibro blade ending the threat. "Escape pods compromised," Dorian shouted over comms. "Shuttles, now!" They raced back, corridors buckling. Super soldiers, now inert, blocked paths like fallen statues. Lenix blasted a door, Mira hacking the last lock. Shuttles detached amid explosions, hulls damaged by debris. Thrusters fired erratically, atmospheric re-entry shaking them like dice. From the descending craft, rebels broadcast the victory. Hacked channels beamed across the soar. VioranTech collapsed, their station erupting in an orbital fireball. Cheers rose from below, cities declaring freedom as enforcers surrendered. Lenix gripped the controls. Mira slumped in her seat. Implant was finally silent. The shuttles touched down in a cleared square, rebels emerging to triumphant crowds. Smoke rose from distant ruins, but Zor's air felt lighter, and the corporation's shadow lifted. Lenix helped Mira out, her steps steady. The final stand had broken them, but at a cost, scars etched deeper than any blade. Smoke lingered over Zor's horizons as the rebel shuttles touched down. The station's explosions still a fading glow in the upper atmosphere. Crowds surged forward, cheers drowning out the engine's whine. Lenix emerged first, his broad frame scarred but unbowed. The grizzled veteran now a symbol of unbreakable resolve. No longer the solitary exile scavenging in shadows. He stood tall, his salt and pepper hair catching the dual sun's light, eyes sharp with the wisdom of battles won. Citizens swarmed the landing site, dismantling VioranTech's lingering tech, ripping out surveillance nodes from buildings, and crushing drones underfoot. Lenix coordinated the effort, his voice steady as he directed teams across the planet. The air buzzed with activity, tropical forests reclaiming spaces once dominated by corporate spires. He oversaw the distribution of 10,000 salvaged weapons to local militias, ensuring each group had pulse rifles and kinetic ammo for defense against any remnants. Mira stepped out beside him, her implant finally excised in a makeshift surgery aboard the shuttle. Free at last, she moved with a natural grace, no longer haunted by mechanical precision. Yet shadows lingered in her olive eyes, grappling with her past role in birthing the super soldiers. "I built monsters," she confessed to Lenix as they walked through a cleared square, voices low amid the celebrations. "How do I live with that?" Lenix paused, turning to her. His hand brushed hers, a tentative touch that sparked something deeper. The wars had forged him from distrust to leadership, but with Mira, it softened the edges he thought permanent. "We all carry scars," he said, drawing her close. Their lips met in a quiet moment, the chaos fading around them. What began as an alliance bloomed into a partnership, her strength mirroring his, doubts replaced by shared purpose. She pulled back, smiling faintly, the weight lifting as he whispered, "You chose freedom. That's what matters." The rebels convened in Xor's central hall, a repurposed VioranTech auditorium now stripped of propaganda screens. They established a council to govern the planet's 3.2 million citizens, rejecting any hint of centralized power. Elected reps from each city-state debated laws, voices rising in passionate arguments, ensuring no single entity could rise like VioranTech. Lenix contributed tactics for ongoing security. His input was valued as the veteran who sparked the flame. Training resumed in the jungles, Lenix leading sessions for new fighters. He demonstrated vibro blade techniques, his movements precise but human, no longer driven by solitary survival. Recruits practiced under his watchful eye, preparing for threats from nearby star systems, rumors of corporate allies stirring. "Stay vigilant," he urged, his personality evolving from guarded exile to inspirational guide. Pride in humanity's resilience evident in every word. Mira, however, declined a council seat. "Leadership isn't my path," she told Lenix during a walk through the forests, vines brushing their arms. The tropical canopy whispered secrets, a far cry from the labs that once confined her. She chose exploration, seeking personal freedom in Xor's untamed wilds. "I need to find who I am beyond the key." Dorian, ever the engineer, repurposed VioranTech remnants in a bustling workshop. He developed a planetary shield, a network of orbital deflectors using salvaged emitters to protect against future attacks. Tests hummed successfully, a dome of energy flickering briefly over the skies. "For the long haul," he said, clapping Lenix on the back. Former slaves gathered in communal fires, sharing tales of liberation. Stories wove through the nights, escapes from mines, battles in streets, inspiring a cultural shift toward unity. Laughter replaced fear, resilience blooming like the jungle's flora. Lenix listened from the edges, reflecting on the war's toll. Lives lost, cities scarred, but freedom earned. As Mira prepared to depart, Lenix joined her at the forest's edge. The dual suns set, painting the sky in hues of violet and gold. She turned, leaving a data chip with her message etched in code. "Read it later," she said, their hands lingering. He watched her vanish into the green, then activated the chip alone in his bunker. Her voice echoed, "Freedom is a journey, not a destination. We fought not just for Xor, but for the right to choose our paths. I created tools of control, but in breaking free, I learned no one should impose chains on another. Lenix, you showed me humanity's pride, doubt turning to bravery, and isolation to alliance. Carry that forward. Everyone deserves this chance, unbound and alive." Her words settled in his mind, a quiet resolve deepening. The veteran, once betrayed and alone, now vowed to safeguard this hard-won peace, his heart open to the world he helped liberate.